It's Matt, and welcome to the second part of the 2020 XMas VLogs, even though it's actually 2021 now. So even more gifting into the new year. So this is going to be an announcement about all the UK stuff that's happened during 2020, and some of the stuff that's going to be happening in 2021 and beyond. So first things first, and these are actually projects that I've participated in, but it's nothing I can actually show you, is that I built the two Pullman coaches. So that was a Pullman parlour and a Pullman kitchen car, and they've actually gone off to LNUR member Will to complement his parlour car and brake coach. So now we can have a 4-coach Pullman train. Pictures were posted to Instagram and Facebook, and I'll probably be able to dig one out and throw it up over as a video overlay to show you. So it's really good. So we've now effectively got a 4-coach Pullman train, which will look really good, especially behind his A3. So, you know, there's been stuff going on. The Pullmans are also Brick Road knuckle equipped. So what I did was I converted 4 of the bogies that are on the coaches, and then I'd also included a pair of extra couplers so that you could do another pair of bogies, and then that would mean that you could have the outer end as normal magnets with the inner 3 sets as being all the KD ones. So it meant that we'll save some magnets. I don't have to use magnets, I can use KDs, and we get a bit more realism from the fact that Pullmans were retrofitted with KDs at a later date. It's just effectively part saving on the original magnets. The other thing I took part in was building parts of the 506 EMU. For those who are a bit unaware of the more unique, probably more individual EMUs, the 506 class was actually based on the Woodhead line for commuter services, or at least one of the branches of the Woodhead line, I believe. So they were in dark green. So what me and LNUR member Jamie have done is that he built the motor coach, which has the pantograph on it and the motorisation and all the actual electrical stuff, and I did the body for the trailing coach and then the trailing cab coach. And some of that included doing a bit of research, so looking at photos, trying to work out what detail was actually there. And in the end, the Train Simulator 20XX, whatever it's called now, there's actually a sale on the Woodhead line in blue on that, and that actually has a virtual copy of the 506, so I was able to get that for a reasonably good price, and then I could load it into the game, have a look at the underside and work out what the detail goes where. So some of those screenshots were sent to Jamie so he can update the motor coach, and I based all the underframe detail on what was on those renders, because a lot of the photos online do not show that detail, and surprisingly enough, most of the photos online are from the pantograph cab coach, like the powered one. So you can't actually make out a lot of the underframe detail on the other ones, and they're normally quite high up as well, sort of like from a bridge. So it's not really easy to make out the underframe detail on the 506 trailing cars, as you'd call it. So those are 2 projects I've sort of helped with within LNUR, and LNUR has gained a bit of a shop, if you like. So those who might know Will or know what LNUR does, one of our members called Will has actually created a new sort of enterprise called Block Junction, and he's actually making instructions for some of the wagons he's built and some of the locos, and he's actually working on a Great Western Hall at the moment, I think it is. So that's looking quite good. There's been some test renders, but we've seen in the LNUR chat, so that's actually looking quite nice. And then that's probably something I'll actually buy in the new year and build. And I'll possibly create some pseudo colic coaches for it. I'm not entirely sure. We could kind of do the Great Western Siphon on LNUR, because we don't actually have a lot of parcel stock. Or certainly Steam era parcel stock at that. So that's something I'll possibly look forward to in 2021. It remains to be seen. You know, things are up in the air at this point about what I'm doing in terms of that sort of thing. moving on to some more projects I can actually show off and do things with. One of the projects for 2021 is the Great Western Rail motor. Now this, there's been some consternation with LNUR because certain members wanted it in maroon, which is actually prototypical for Great Western coaching stock and powered sort of like auto coaches, as this rail motor would be, or that sort of thing. Unfortunately, the I think it's the 1x2x3 window frames are not available in dark red, so that's not actually a possible thing. So actually it's going to come out in Great Western chocolate and cream, which I think are actually in most of their life, in one way or another, whether it was the full lined version or the plain version later on. So to do that, of course, I've got to destroy one of my locos which was fully finished but never actually saw an exhibition, and that's this one. This is a block junction model as well, so you can actually get instructions with it. This is a slightly modified version anyway. This is what Will calls the pocket rocket, because it's very similar to the Hornby 040 Smoky Joe chassis, which they use for quite a lot of their entry-level locos. So it's got a make a toddler there, powered up battery box and motor on this. So this is actually a powered up motor, so it shares the same size with the power functions. So that's connected with some big Ben Bricks wheels and then a Train Bricks connecting rod. So this is actually got a full set of motion. So obviously you'd have internal valve gear for this, which I've made a few tweaks to the design, partially because it's in green, so not all parts are available in green. And I've also changed the cab slightly so it's a bit more enclosed, as you would get for a more later life industrial. Other than that, it's pretty much as you'd get from the instructions, and I've added a bit more detail to the top of the boiler there. So there's a bit more in terms of safety features. There's a firebox fuse and a safety valve and a few other bits and pieces. So it's a little different to what you'd get from the instructions, but overall, this is a very nice model. You'll actually see this in an upcoming video when I talk about how you can actually do trams using powered up. So I've got a lot of that recorded. I'll just need to narrate a few bits and pieces and throw out some decent photos, or take some renders, and then you can actually show that. So this is actually getting destroyed for the parts. So the motor will probably be getting left as is, pretty much, with some different bits attached, and then the battery box can actually go in the model. And the battery box of this, I'm actually going to use something which arrived tail end last year, which is Key Brick 1. So this is actually going inside the model when it actually gets built. So it means then I can just, providing I can work out how to get a removable section of the body for the battery box, or just to make the section where the battery box is removable, then I can do that. So then I don't have to bother with rechargeable batteries, just use a charger and away we go. What are some of the other things that I've got on the to-do list or announce? The parcels van. Now this is a model I've had for quite a long time. This is in BR Maroon. This is actually a model I had to order pretty much 90% of the parts for, including all the door rails, the 1x2 dark red G-slopes, all the 1x4 tiles I've used for the doors. This is quite a complex model. It's quite weak. It's actually built using mostly snoft for the actual body. So the only actual built up pieces, if you like, are the underframe and the roof, and then there's some internal supports. The rest of it is all snot work. So the body actually is going opposite way, so it's actually going that way, and then the ends are all tiled over. So you actually get two halves of the body, and they sort of sit together, and then they're actually held together by the doors. So it's actually quite a clever technique. You can actually see the underframe there. I'm not bothered. You can't actually see the light bluish grey when it's proper, so I don't care. The only thing that really needs to happen to this is actually to finish off the underframe. So it's got the roller bearing wheel sets on there, which I'm quite pleased about. So this all just needs some flex tubing, probably some brick brick arms U-clips, so you can actually get a little bit of standout around the actual hubs. And then the only other thing is a bit of detail. Then it's ready for revenue service, effectively. So I might build a few modifications to this. So obviously this sort of style of body was actually used for Thomas and Friends parcel vans, so I might see if I can do a bogie version of this for Mr. Carter, because he obviously has a fascination for making Thomas and Things stuff for LNUR layout, so I might be able to do a conversion of that for that, because most of the parts in this are pretty much available in most colours, so making a regular red version will probably be very doable compared to making a dark red one, which is a little expensive. Something else I was working on and off, especially towards the start of 2020 and possibly even the tail end of 2019, was milk tankers. So obviously milk tankers were used to transport milk from farms to creameries and dairies for processing, and then obviously conversion into things such as cheese and that sort of thing. And they were normally high-speed four-wheel tankers at the start, and obviously it was also carried in milk churns and vans. And later on they actually made specialised six-wheel underframes, which were very well sprung, with tanks on top. So these aren't actually complete anymore. I've actually started harvesting these for parts. So this is it's sort of like Express Dairies one, and then there was also a sort of like Milk for London one, which only the tank now exists for, because I've actually started taking it apart already. The reason being is that these were good models, kind of, but they didn't actually fit in the they didn't fit around R40, and it was just like, well, why don't you make the central one the sliding one, or why don't you raise it up like a plate, and so in the end I was just like, I'm not actually that bothered about these, and the parts are actually more useful in other things. So these are actually, well, obviously the one's already been destroyed. This one's only got the two wheels left and some of the chassis, so I can actually take these apart again. They've got some really nice parts in them I've used, which I can use for other things, so I can take these apart, use the parts for other things. I might actually make some tankers out of the actual what's left of them. Remains to be seen, but yeah, I can take these apart, use the parts for other things, and then have a look and see if they're useful for anything else. So that's that's all the standard gauge stuff out of the way. Now obviously one of the Instagram posts I mentioned purchasing a load of Tricks Bricks narrow gauge track, such as this. So surprisingly enough, this was actually in the Lego patent for track. So narrow gauge stuff was actually talked about in the Lego patent, but they never actually went through with it, which is quite interesting. So there's two sorts of railways that I kind of want to start doing the CAD work for, even if I don't actually build them in 2021, and those are the Vale of Rydal and the Linton and Barnstable, both of which ironically use green locos and chocolate coloured coaches. So maybe there's some sort of Great Westerny sort of theme being perpetrated in 2021. Not entirely sure. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything that's happened with LNUR for my input to LNUR. The other major thing really, although it's not a UK thing per se, is the LNUR line. So that's actually a podcast I actually sort of came up with a sort of idea, because obviously I listen to A Modeller's Life. You know, I am Superman 36 after all. And I sort of came up with the idea of, well, if there's podcasts about model trains, surely we can have a podcast about Lego trains. Now, obviously, Brick Model Round had picked us to the post first with theirs, which was kind of a surprise. I don't think any of us in the hobby were expecting the Brick Model Round podcast to start up. So, it's all great that we're starting getting all this media from the lockdown That's actually when it roughly started. So yeah, I actually came up with the initial session for a podcast. I sort of messaged Richard Carter, who's the head of LNUR, and I sort of said, would you think it'd be worth doing a podcast? Okay, so we did a trial one, which was episode 1, and it actually went down reasonably well. So we sort of said, well, we'll do one every 2 weeks, and there was just sort of this, well, what do we call it? And it was just like, well, and in actual fact, I came up with the session because it was just like I think there was several running titles, and in the end, I just said, well, it's about railway, so it should be railway themed. So we just like LNUR Junction, and then I sort of came up with, well, why don't you have the LNUR line, because it's a railway line, and you're obviously going along the line as you're going along the podcast. So obviously you're discovering stuff, so on and forth. And then if you've got anything out, and then it kind of evolved into, well, if you've got stuff that's on the line but not something that would be talked about in a normal podcast, you can have it as a branch line. So you get this sort of co-branding, so it's not part of the main line, but it's part of the branch line. I'm not just an ugly face and some daft ideas. I do occasionally have a little nugget of gold amongst it. Then that's evolved into what it is now. It's a bit of a monster. And I actually fund the audio-only releases on Libsyn. So I'm to thank for that. I'm also the editor of the LNUR Line podcast. So anytime there's an audio release or a video release, that's done by me on this very computer. So I've actually got episode 10 sitting in raw format on my hard drive. I do need to edit, so apologies for that. I have a regular 5-day job, so that hoovers up a huge amount of my time I have in my waking hours. And then obviously there's been other things I've been getting on with, so some gaming. Obviously it's been Christmas, and there's a few other bits and pieces as well. So I don't intentionally delay the podcast, but unfortunately it sort of falls a little bit more to the wayside while I do other bits and pieces, and some of the design work for a special project which I'm not at liberty to discuss at the moment, but let's just say when it arrives, I think there'll be quite a lot of happiness when it comes out. I think that's pretty much everything I need to talk about for the British sort of side of things. Also, if you've got any questions or you got any comments, feel free to drop them below. And that's it for the British update for the 2020 vlog. So that's it for now, and Happy New Year. Well, at least, hopefully it's a better year than last year.